Thank you all for being here. So this paper is really part of a larger project, my dissertation, which focuses on law and religion, exploring divorce refusal and comparing the situation in Toronto and New York, where I really investigate the overlapping legal norms of Jewish law and civil law, and the extent to which civil legal regulation has actually impacted or remedied the socio-religious phenomenon of gett refusal. I placed women's narrative squarely at the center of this study, and this is sort of an extension of that. This piece really emerged as a response to Susan Weiss's recent article a few months ago, where she was very adamant that we should not be shaming. Because if we shame, then the rabbis won't feel pressure to come up with real solutions. And so then Professor Lisa Fishman, who's a member of the JLA, asked me to write a blog post in honor of International Aguna Day on Tani Esther. So I used that as an opportunity to respond to Susan Weiss, where I said, actually, no, I think we must still use shaming. Shaming is a powerful tool. So this is sort of a result of that discourse. So there are three sets of covert discourses that I argue, which silently underpin the issue of gett refusal. So rather than concealing or repressing these analyses, I want to bring two sets of these discourses here to the foreground, so as to consider aspects of gett refusal which have been all but ignored in the existing literature, both the socio-legal literature addressing gett refusal, as well as the literature by Jewish scholars, including feminists, have not considered explicitly or analyzed the images or iconography associated with gett refusal, and how women and the issue of gett refusal are depicted. And as you will see, the images regularly portray women as slaves. In this paper, I will also explore the uncharted territory, conducting an analysis of the use of social media in galvanizing what I coined rebooted parent or e-shaming, and the use of social media by Misoud Gett as a means to assert their agency and voice their void, as they are most often silenced by their abusive husbands, and then even at times by their complacent communities, and then even at times as well by the feminist activists who attempt to help them. So these two unexplored aspects of gett refusal demonstrate the potentially transformative power of grassroots efforts to positively impact both social and legal change. So the third discourse that I mentioned at the fore is that beyond the scope of this talk today is really the examination of gett refusal as a distinct site of admittable domestic abuse, which has largely as well been left out of the literatures to date.
Under the podium to this door. Yes, turn it on. No, it's on the side of the slide.
Okay, let me show you. I can use theirs. Hold on. It's okay. So they're back. So I investigate the nexus of religion and domestic violence somewhere else, to investigate the ways in which religion is manipulated to buttress men's abuse using Jewish law. So that is beyond the scope, but I just want to mention that here, since I'm sort of sounding the silences of these covert discourses. But back to our two aspects today of e-shaming and iconography. In their study of the impact of images, religious images, in their study Photo Elicitation in the Visual Sociology of Religion, Roman Williams and Kyle Whitehouse illustrate that research methods that rely on words or numbers alone may miss vital visual data that's important to understanding. And they are correct in their contention, and indeed the study is made richer by analyzing the massification of iconography on gett refusal. Undoubtedly, the iconography imparts additional understanding of the phenomenon itself. That is, women relying on the free will of abusive, contemptible men in their own freedom, as well as understanding about Jewish communities, that is, their ability to shame husbands rather than ignore the shame that wives feel, and also the evolution of tradition, that is, the high-text revamped use of clarity. Yuki Kurosawa, in the context of contemporary forms of slavery, developed a model for analyzing images depicting slavery, and I'm going to adapt his comprehensive model here to some extent for analysis of the gett refusal images. Interestingly, one of the images used in get refusal advocacy, the most common trope is that of slavery or chattel. So we see a lot of images with shackles or handcuffs, chains or anchors. And being that the word agun in Hebrew translates literally as an anchor, women would get, for whatever reason, are chained, anchored, or shackled to unwanted marriages. There is actually a very similar comparator to be made between the images associated with slavery and the images associated with get refusal. In fact, one of the agunot that I interviewed, of dozens and dozens of agunot I interviewed, said to me, I felt like a slave. That was one of the things I heard very often from agunot. And Alan Dershowitz echoed that statement at the 2013 Agunot Summit when he said, let us not mince words, agunot are modern-day slaves. Moreover, the right to marry and divorce has been a principal issue taken up by CEDAW, the Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, by Israel's very own Ruth Halpern Kadari. Some feminist critics of Jewish marriage have gone so far as to claim that the kinyan requirement is a halakhically mandated way to own a wife, similar to chattel. One example of the scholar who makes this argument is Rachel Adler, who wrote in Gender and Judaism. So it's intriguing that slavery or chattel are used as comparators to get refusal. And so it's in this vein that I relied on Kurosawa's model of analysis of slavery iconography and adopt it here. Understanding how the evil of get refusal is formed as a public wrong is interesting because images or representations are virtually identical across time and space despite diverse contexts, social, political, historical, etc. And so rather than assuming that get refusal is a bad phenomenon existing in society whose self-evident status is a morally abhorrent fact, serves as an unquestioned point of analytical departure, instead we will examine some of the images through which advocacy groups produce such a construction of a moral evil against which public opinion can be mobilized and then steps can be taken to prevent or stop the phenomenon's persistence. So, having examined hundreds of images, I grouped them together based on visual tropes that I identified. The images are evocative at times, and they harness power to gain socio-political traction. The vast majority of images, which are most often used by advocacy groups, are women's hands in shackles, handcuffs, or tied and constrained in some way. The women's bodies or faces are never shown, making this simultaneously unrelatable and also yet a universal phenomenon. So one perspective might consider that by showing only hands in shackles, it may be difficult to elicit empathy because after all, the issue is faceless, right? So if the issue is faceless, we might ask, well, who does this actually impact? How many people does this impact? Moreover, showing only the hands of women portrays them as suffering, enslaved subjects, passive captives, victims unable to assert their agency by navigating their way through the complex web of normative legal and social orders, which of course is totally contrary to my empirical evidence. While perhaps the design cultivates a moral revulsion and outrage among viewers to see hands and chains like this, it's not really effective advocacy for feminists, right? Women's agency is central to the practice of feminist advocacy, and ironically, as we see with this massification of the first visual trope, much of the feminist advocacy uses images that portray women as the very opposite, that is, their passivity and victimhood subjugation. So that's on the one hand. On the other hand, you could argue that a different perspective might consider the manacle hands as universal, right? They could belong to anybody, and so potentially any woman might become an aguna, and so we should all care. Every woman is at risk. The massification of these types of images, this particular visual trope, should emphasize the universality of get refusal and also its interdenominational impact. As my research shows, it's not only Orthodox women who find themselves as agunot, and it's not only Orthodox women who insist on a halacha get and not an alternative. So the second category of images portrays the shackles or manacles breaking open, freeing the women's hands. The massification of these images is not nearly to the same degree as the first icon. Far fewer exist. But these images are interesting that they evoke quite a different reaction. With the previous icon, that would elicit sadness or anger or despair at the abuse that persists with no end in sight. While contrasting that, these images elicit hope or optimism, renewal, restored sense of justice. Yet, that said, these images still do nothing for the accurate portrayal of the women themselves. They are still faceless and still bodiless, and so consequently, still problematically represented as silent and passive, which is contrary to my experience in interviewing them. The third and fourth iconographic tropes are slogans, posters, and rally posters. Let's see. Nope. Nope. They're not in order. All right, never mind. We'll just have to take my word for it. The third and fourth iconographic tropes are slogans, posters, and rally posters. We've all seen them, which are both used as part of advocacy efforts by organizations. The latter, the slogan posters and rally posters, usually include the same amount of information, right? They have the picture of the sarvan, they have often a copy of the sirup, they list some details about the case, and really that's a form of public shaming. That allows for cherem maneuvers to sort of begin. Similarly, very similarly to the wanted ads of the Gallery of Vanished Husbands, a gallery of Verschwundene Männer from their forwards, the English newspaper in the early 1900s, which we'll look at in a moment. So the ads are publicized by social media campaigns on Facebook and other forums, and by email blitzes by advocacy organizations such as Aura and others. The former, the slogans include like, when one is in chains, we are all bound, every aguna is my sister, freedom for aguna now, let her go, and on and on. The only slogan with the explicit goal, here's some more, keep calm, break the chains. These are very common slogans that you see in aguna postering. The most interesting slogan, in my opinion, and is the last one. As the motor of the world unite, you have nothing to lose but your chains. The reason I find it interesting is because it's the only slogan with the explicit goal of empowering women, which is from an advocacy group in the United Kingdom. However, all of these slogans are significant for a number of reasons. They invoke community, they associate get refusal with domestic abuse, and they invoke shame. So, framing get refusal as domestic abuse, obviously, as I noted before, puts the onus on the recalcitrant husband in a way none of the other iconographic tropes have done, and moreover, shame as a strategy to repel the recalcitrant is invoked in these slogans. And that harkens back to the traditional cherem mechanism, a method of persuasion, employing shaming, ostracism, at times even excommunication, and banishment. The final slogan, again, interestingly, empowers women refused to get and encourages them to self-identify in order to unite and build a community. So, going back to Kurosawa's model, adopting a culturally attuned critical sociology enables us to gain a more holistic understanding of the often neglected symbolic work that actually underpins get refusal activism. And it's crucial to note that while the visibility of the iconography in and of itself is positive, when women are positioned as passive victims awaiting rescue, there are troubled gender narratives that percolate into the important pictorial campaigns. Apart from the four visual tropes emerging from the images associated with get refusal, are other significant elements of iconography, and those are lists of siruvim, and orders of contempt, which are orders of contempt published by popular Jewish presses. This is out of the Jewish press in Europe, and I believe it's the most widely read Jewish press. So you can see the list here. And, oh God, 5 minutes. I haven't done anything. And similarly, we have examples from the Beit Din Rabbani that has wanted ads on their website. This is their webpage. So again, this harkens back to the Jewish Daily Forward of Yore, really revamping the traditional cherem and using social media as a modern, revamped, rebooted cherem, being able to use the technologies in a whole new way, but really not a whole new way. The same technology that was used 100 years ago, we're sort of picking up on today. Skip here. We've all seen the list of siruvim that appear in the Jewish press. And similarly to that, we have a move to shame husbands in social media. There have been Facebook pages set up, hashtags, the Twitter tags, freelana.org, freeital.com, hashtag freeadina, hashtag freehernow, and others. Some have seen up to 46,000 views, 68,000 views respectively. So the use of shame in social media has really become pervasive. The contemporary cherem displayed through various forms of iconography discussed is a reimagined, rebooted version of the traditional mechanism used to pressure or shame a husband to grant a get using what I call e-shaming. So let's see, we'll go back to that. Free Lana doesn't work. Free Vital. Free Melissa. This is the gallery of vanished husbands. I'm sure many of you have seen this before, right? So it's very similar to compare the old technology of yours using shaming to for absconding husbands to disappear, leaving their wives as the traditional forms of Admonind versus today using the images to shame husbands whose whereabouts are known and yet still are refusing to give a wife a get. Free Adina, Ellie Shore, and those who want out. So I'll just leave this one example for the end. So e-shaming as the interaction between get refusal and technology, wherein the use of technology helps to remedy instances of get refusal, shaming recalcitrant husbands. And while this nexus is not novel, as I've shown, and as our short analysis of the forward has illustrated, in this digital age, the interaction between through get and technology has only intensified as we've moved on from solely postering communities and setting up rallies, though these are still important aspects of cherem that ought to persist. E-shaming is a constructive and effective strategy, another grassroots mechanism to induce husbands to grant gets despite their desire to control their wives. Now, the reason e-shaming is so beneficial is actually because it contrasts or corrects a significant problem with cherem, right? One of the main critiques of cherem that we have today is that it's impossible to enforce because there's always another community the husband can go to, or there's always another synagogue they can join, or they can move away easily. But in today's digital age, cherem online using e-shaming really traps the husband to his decision to change his wife. He can't, even if he moves away, e-shaming will follow him wherever he goes. And so it actually corrects a problem with the traditional cherem. An Israeli case we recently saw this. Osnat Sharon from Yad Laisha gave a great quote saying that the public town hall has now moved onto the E-stage. The town square is being replaced by a virtual space in which one's individual influence is at times only a finger click away. And we've seen this over and over again. So this woman is a woman that I interviewed, Batya Ruth. Actually, she was in Miami, but she's originally from New York. I interviewed her about 5 years ago, and she explained in detail the tremendous abuses she suffered. After a certain amount of time, just a few months ago, her friends decided, with her permission, that she had nothing left to lose, it was time to go public. And so they started this page, and you've seen it on social media. She tells her own story in her own words. It goes on and on for pages, and she details the intense abuse that she has faced, both her and her children. She's even suffered a miscarriage due to the physical abuse. And they list that, all the court documents that are there. You can see that her husband has no visitation, also because he's abusive. She has a 15-year order of protection against him, and he hasn't paid any child support, of course. So this call to action went viral very quickly. People were encouraged to send him letters, send him Facebook messages, and also go to the salon where he now worked as a masseuse. I didn't show you the picture of him. He had been, at the time of their marriage, wearing shtreimel and so this campaign was very successful. Within a few weeks, she had her get. I'm happy to report. There are other examples of e-shaming that have been used. We all are familiar with Vital Donaldson, so I'm not really going to talk about her, but Vital Donaldson is a very famous case. Rav Moshe Feinstein's granddaughter-in-law, who didn't get a get. Eventually, she got her get with great help to e-shaming. These are some examples from women that I personally interviewed who took matters into their own hands, creating their own sort of spreadsheets, and they left these in cars parked in the shul parking lot, right under the windshield of members of the shul. This is a woman who I interviewed who's a Yevama in Toronto. For many years, she created this image herself and sent it around to everybody that she knew. This was my favorite. One woman purchased and donated a doorstop to the shul. She noticed that the door always banged in the middle of minyan. So she bought a doorstop, and she wrote on the doorstop, "Donated by Rachel in anticipation of her get from Yitzchak." She said, every time they walk in and out of shul, they should know that I'm still waiting. Love it, right? So that's another way of using shaming in a very effective manner and taking matters into their own hands. So that's my final quote. we're all done. That's my final quote. Really just because social media and e-shaming gets a lot of, a bad rap, and there's a lot of controversy around it. And I'm not arguing that e-shaming will exact a get in all cases. That's not necessarily true. However, it exacts a get in some cases, so that's important. It indicates to husbands that there is ramifications for their actions, that they will be shamed, and it's not always pleasant, so that's a second important factor. And the most important factor is that e-shaming empowers women who are most often silenced by everyone around them. So I think we should continue with e-shaming. Thank you.